All right, Patty, we're live and on YouTube. You're welcome to start the meeting.
Okay. The March 15th, 2021 meeting of the Chagrin Falls Planning and Zoning Commission will be called to order. Dale, we need to wait for a quorum to join the meeting. Is that
I
correct?
think we have everyone.
Oh, we do? I'm sorry. I don't see. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think Nicole tuned
there.
out and is trying to get back in with an audio connection issue.
Okay. Oh, there's, sorry.
Okay.
I'm on a different computer than I am usually, so everything's a little different. Okay, so everybody received the agenda, I assume. And is Julie here? I think Julie was going to join, maybe not yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen her yet, but I.
Okay,
she
yeah,
was
I
gonna
think she's
join us.
coming. I thought we maybe could rearrange the agenda a little bit just to deal with things in the most reasonable manner. So number 5 on code is looking at chapter 113502A, possible changes to permitted uses in the office district. I know Julie's working on some information, some research on that for us. So I would propose just sort of moving that to next time when she'll have that out to us for consideration. Unless anybody has anything they want to say about it right now. We talked about it a little bit last week.
I've received no more follow-up inquiries regarding that subject either since the last
Okay.
week.
Nancy, did you have anything about that, or you're okay waiting
that's
until?
fine. Yeah, it's last, so yeah, definitely
Okay.
move it to next month.
Okay. Wendy, did you want to say anything about that, or you're okay waiting until Julie
fine.
provides?
Do you
Okay.
need a motion to table it?
No.
No.
Okay. Judy and Nicole, did you guys want to say anything about that, or are you okay waiting?
No, that's fine.
I'm fine.
Okay. So we'll just have information from Julie next time around on that. And then let's see.
Wait a second. Is Christy there somewhere?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Julie needs to be let in, she said.
I see. Okay, thank you. She joined as an,
Here.
I will take care of it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Maybe
Here.
she might have something to say now on it.
Okay.
Looks like she's making the connection. Just give her a moment. There's Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
We were just discussing moving 113502A permitted uses in office district to next month so that we might have some research and suggestions from you. Is that?
Yes. I'll have it. I'll have it for you next month.
Okay. Okay. So then back up to number 1. This legislation that Dale's been working on and sent a couple revisions. Hopefully everybody has the latest one that came, maybe middle of last week.
Got it on the screen, the latest one from Dale.
Yep. Dale, can you
Is that
recap?
numbered? Or what email was that one in? So,
Hang on a sec, I can tell you. I sent that to you on March 12th.
March 12th.
Yeah, Rob had sent one out and then the next day Dale
Yeah,
sent some changes.
Friday, March 12th.
Okay, yeah.
Dale, can you just recap what changed here? It's just wording or moving things around a little bit.
Sure. I'm going to work off of a different version because the colors are a little easier for me to figure out. But most of it was just fixing words that were missing because we just didn't see them the last time I looked at it. A couple of things I moved around, like in section 11.1103 E, I moved incorrect to closer to the beginning of the sentence, just because I thought it would read better. And then I added the word ordinarily to make it clearer that that 20-day period that we give you is really just an additional 10 days beyond what you would have had if you had gotten the correct information. That's the only changes I made in section 1 on 11.1103. Then in section 2 on 11.1103, you see the whole thing. Actually, it's section 3, I should say. It has the deletions and the additions just so that everybody knows what changes we made from scratch. And so those are the only changes I made there. In section 4, I added 11.11.10G at the beginning just for clarification again. And that was really it. Those were the only changes I made on the 12th. Now, there were changes I made before the 12th when Rob sent it out around again, which, let's see. I made changes on the 11th. Got to find the right version. And in section 3, I added a couple words in the beginning just to say that with these additions and strikeouts as amended, it reads as follows. And then that was the only other change that I made that day. All the other changes were made right after our last meeting, which I sent off to everybody in, let's see, that was on the 18th of February.
Do we normally have all this section 2 and section, like how will this go to council? I'm not used to having like the whole
Yeah.
repealed thing in there. Is that?
Normally you don't put it in, or Julie doesn't put it in. But when we get to console, we always do that. It's what I call the Carl Mersch formatting. He liked to see 3 versions. He liked to see the new language, then he'd like to see, which is mandated by statute, to show what we're repealing. And then the new part that he wanted was to show strikeouts and underlining. So it was easier to read what was being changed. So whenever we do any ordinance of any substance where we're amending the codified ordinances or the zoning code, I do it all 3 ways now. It's kind of a pain for my secretary, but we do it.
I'm just like the one that I have, section 3 is all red. It looks like is that the section that should have strikeouts and
No, it's all new.
Yeah. The reason why you see it that way is because of the change that we made before. When it goes to console, it won't look that way, but
it'll
it's
show.
yeah.
When it goes to council, it'll show what's currently in the book versus versus what's new.
Yes,
Correct. It's
that's-
like, it's a,
That's the way
Yeah,
Dale
you're
states it in the ordinance.
right. You're seeing a red line because it shows everything that's in that new section, either underlined or deleted. But if I accepted all the changes and sent it to you, which I think we did. Yeah, we sent you a clean version.
Yeah, I think,
When you look at,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, I think it's just because this was your changes between the 11th and the 12th. So it looks like,
well, yeah, if you look at the version where we accepted all the changes, you'd still see the underlining or the strikeouts for what was changed in section 3.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the version that you've got that Rob has up on the screen now.
that was earlier.
With,
Rob, do you have the March
This
12th
is-
version
This
up
is
there?
the March 12th version on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, so I read from that first and then I went back to look for what I changed the day before. It was only a couple words.
And
There's
that's
no
what is that what was in the blue on the screen?
right.
When we were in number 3, it was red and then there were a couple words in blue.
right, but my copy of that isn't showing the strikeouts like yours is.
Same.
It's solid red and it's all underlined.
It could be the way your view is set up in Word,
Yeah.
because I've had
Well,
that
are you,
before too.
did you print it out, Nancy? Are you looking at it
No.
on your computer?
No, I'm
Yeah,
looking
then-
at the screen and it doesn't look like what's on, what Rob's got on the screen.
It's
I
gotta be
can s-
in a view, the form of the view, because I've had that also. Christy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you want me to help Nancy get a different view for
Yeah,
her
do you
Word document?
remember how we've dealt with this where we changed the view and then?
Yep.
Okay.
So Nancy, at the top of your Word document, there is an option that says View. If you expand that, then within that submenu, there should be a Track Changes section. And there's a pull-down menu. I'm going from memory, so excuse me if it's not exact.
I think it's under review.
Review. Okay,
Chrissy.
thank you. Thank you, Julie. You're right.
I think the first tab is review.
Correct.
I think
Thank you.
so. See
Yep.
what you think.
Yep. I'm gonna launch Word right now. I
And
think
then-
you're right.
Can you see that at the top of my screen on the screen share?
Yes, that's perfect.
So now where do I go?
And then there's the tracking option. Yep. And you have all markup showing, that pull down menu. If you change that, sometimes if you change it to simple markup or no markup, it changes what you see. So if I'm not mistaken, Rob, just change it to simple markup and see what. I don't know. But
I'm gonna send
how-
that PDF.
there you go. That's how
send
you
you all
manipulate
All
PDF.
the view.
right. So I've got that, mine's blue though.
Rob, if you can click that enable editing option too. Kind of go away.
Maybe that's why it wasn't letting me.
Yep, exactly. So that,
Yeah.
yep,
The simple markup changed, no markup changed, original changed,
hmm
so I went back to all markup. So review, and then over here, all markup, where my cursor's circling.
I guess my question was, council will see the full markup compared to what's currently in our code, not the previous versions you've been sending us, Dale, right?
Correct.
Right, so as we've changed it, they'll see the most current version with the changes indicated from
Right.
based on the original.
Okay.
This is Christy. I usually send council a clean version and a red line version so they can compare and see the changes as well.
Did anybody on the commission want to speak about this? I think we've kind of thoroughly gone through it in previous
Yeah,
meetings.
I have reservations about that one section E. I think
That was sort of what started this whole process, was
11-11-03.
providing relief in case there was an error.
I guess my thinking was that if we put a date certain from which to count, that issue wouldn't occur.
Unless they were told the wrong date, which is what E's trying to.
Well, they couldn't be told the wrong date. Because the date would be from the date of the letter. That's.
What if the information in the letter is wrong? That's what the problem was in that one matter. The letter had the wrong date.
Yeah, because the letter didn't reference the correct statute, but we changed the code at the beginning of this section to say that your date starts to run from the date of the letter. So we changed the rule to make it fit the letter. Whenever the letter goes out, that's the date.
Right. But the problem in that case was they were given a specific date as opposed to saying 10 days from such and such. So as long as the letter complied with the new language in 11-11-03, I would agree with you.
Well, that's the point of the letter, though. We didn't send a letter before.
Yeah, we did.
No, not always.
Not always. Not for every decision of P and Z.
Right.
Or just for BZA.
Or for the architecture board either.
The reason the letter was sent is because the applicant wanted to file an appeal with BZA. And we looked, I don't know why the date was incorrect. It could have been a typo. And also we looked at the date in which you had to submit an application for the forthcoming BZA meeting. But also in that was the timeliness of filing an appeal, and that we were off. I'm not sure the exact cause of the incorrect date in that letter, but it's there were several different dates that had to coincide. And that's why the letter was written. The intent of that was to clarify that point.
Anybody else on the commission that wants to speak?
Nothing from me.
I guess my opinion on this is that Dale, as our law director, recommended including that section as well as these other changes, and we've gone through this a number of times. So I'd like to make a motion to
Wait a minute.
recommend this to council.
Is this the right timing? Is that what Aaron wanted this month on that? I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, except that being said, there's really no time limit from the time that we vote on something till council has to hear it.
They
At
have
least
to
I'm not
set,
aware of any time frame.
no, let me pull that up. There's they have to set a public hearing.
Right.
Why can't I find it?
They have to set a public hearing, but there's no required time from the time that P and Z votes on something.
I understand they don't want stuff coming from us all the time, but
Right.
I'd like to move a few things off our agenda.
Right, yeah, and we
Right.
can, Patty, we can move these
If
off.
nobody else has anything else to say about it on P and Z, then there's no reason for it to keep being on our
Right.
agenda.
I'm just saying that there's not necessarily a rush from the time that we vote on something that council has to hear it, that council has to have a public hearing like within so many days or something.
Right. Yeah, 1113.04 does not specify the date when we have to have the hearing. It just says upon receiving the recommendation, council shall hold a public hearing.
Right.
So I would prefer, as Patty has suggested, to do it whenever we're done, because otherwise we wind up talking about it all over again.
Right, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Is that okay, Dale?
sure.
Okay, so again, I'll make a motion to approve this or recommend to council this ordinance to amend planning the zoning code section 111103 A, B, and C, and section 1111.10 section G.
And that's this version that's up on the screen.
Yes, as provided by Dale on March 12th, 2021.
Second,
Motion by Baker, second by Rogoff. Take the vote. Fenninger,
Aye.
Pelosi,
Aye.
Rogoff,
aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Okay, and then another thing that seemed like we had discussed and were ready to act upon, but didn't because Aaron suggested that might be best for council, was rezoning of the village-owned parcels of land. Number 3 on our agenda tonight, but if we can talk about that now. We didn't receive anything new about this. It's exactly what we talked about last time. We've been given a map, and Aaron gave a presentation on what's being proposed. Does anybody on the commission have anything to say about this or want to discuss it further?
I don't have anything else.
Did we reach a resolution on the Grove Hill Park land, if that was going to be conservation or parks?
Do we need to go through them one by one for motions, Dale?
You could do them all as one, I think.
I was typing something out on this ordinance. What was the question?
With the rezoning of the village-owned parcels of land that we discussed last month. Nobody had anything further to discuss about that, really. If we go ahead with voting on that, do we need a separate motion for each parcel?
No, you can do it as one.
Yeah, like I said.
My instinct would be to put them all as conservation. I don't.
I think that's what we kind of agreed to do with
Okay.
all of them.
I thought you wanted to talk further about Grove Hill, though.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, Grove
Dale, in
Hill
what
has
way?
those deed restriction that's actually more restrictive than our conservation district. So it really should be in the conservation district.
Judy, were you trying to say something too?
I was just asking Dale what, if he recalled, because it seemed to me like we did finish it and say, well, we're not going to do the motion because it's not, we're sending them all to council, which was my point before. But I wondered if Dale had a suggestion or a recollection of something particular he thought we didn't finish discussing.
I thought maybe Nancy was going to talk to the commission, not the commission, but the board between that's set up between the village and the conservancy to see what they thought. But
Right.
maybe that was just.
I'm sorry, Dale. I thought you were at that. There was a Grove Hill meeting and I thought you were there,
No.
but I guess you weren't. Okay. Yeah, we did talk about it at the Grove Hill meeting, and they agreed that it should be conservation district, in part at least because there are deed restrictions on the property that are more restrictive than our conservation district even. So they agreed that it did belong in the conservation district.
Okay. Rob, do you have can you get the ordinance up on the screen for the rezoning?
It'll take me a few minutes, but let me work on that.
I don't think we received a.
We didn't get another version of it.
You know, I don't think that I did. I must not have done it.
I don't
I think
remember,
we just,
I don't recall seeing one, Dale.
yeah, I'm just seeing the map. So, but no, I take it back. I did do something
You
on that.
did.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember now I had to verify all the parcels.
Let me look for that right now.
I don't recall seeing it in an ordinance form
It wasn't an ordinance form.
or in anything other than the map kind of memo.
Yeah, and the list of parcels. But I mean, we don't need it in ordinance form for planning and zoning.
Okay.
No,
No.
no. I just want to make sure I'm not duplicating. I'm not seeing it in my directory, so I must not have done an ordinance.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
But at last month, we had a list of the parcels.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have a list of parcels. Let me see if I can bring that up. Hold on, please.
Okay.
I just can't remember if we voted and said, but we'll hold them all till we have enough to go to council, or we didn't vote. I'm thinking that we
We
didn't.
didn't vote.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we.
Did you want to see the map again?
No, I mean, I don't need to anyway. I mean, we need the list of parcels.
Okay.
Yeah, in your motion,
in
you
the-
want to name all the parcels.
It was in the map, or it was on the map.
Yeah, it's on the map. So let me just screen share that.
There.
All right, so this lists the parcel on Low Street at the corner of Low and Cleveland. It lists the parcels that the village owns along Bell and Low Street going down to the river.
Don't we have the parcel numbers?
Yes, they're right there on the screen.
know what?
They're on there.
I did do an ordinance. I knew I wasn't crazy. I sent it to you all on the, yeah. I had a note in there. This is the Grove Hill parcel. Decide if you want it in parks or conservation. That's probably what you're thinking of when you saw a list. So I did the ordinance. I just need to finalize it.
Was it for all these parcels or just Grove Hill?
No, it was all of them.
Okay.
We don't have that yet, right, Dale? That was something you would still work
No,
on.
I did. I sent it to all of you on
This 22nd?
on the 19th. I sent it to Rob, Julie, and the zoning commission, planning and zoning commission.
19th of which month?
February.
Of
I got it.
February.
I
February.
got it. I'm getting that up here.
Right, yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't remember that you had made an ordinance out of this.
Yeah, I didn't either. I have it.
Yeah, but I do
The
have.
reason, yeah, the reason why I remembered is I had to go back and look at our, I forgot what we called it, our comprehensive amendment we did in 19 to look at, because I wanted to make sure we didn't have any conflicts on those parcels, and I used the same language. So that's the only reason I remembered it.
It should be
Yeah.
clear on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yep.
can we just maybe have a motion and reference those parcels in 1 through 5?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Because this ordinance doesn't have a number anyway, right?
Right.
Right.
Do you want a motion, Patty?
Sorry, I'm just checking a couple things. It looks, I'm just reading the ordinance. It looks fine to me. I'm comfortable with that.
And the motion can say for number 2 that we've decided on the conservation district.
Right. I took out the parenthetical.
And then Dale make that revision. So the final ordinance will say conservation.
And is the Grove Hill parcel separated yet?
Yes.
Yes,
Split, so this
when we,
is number
when we
of,
bought it, that, yeah, we took title that way.
okay,
We have the title to it.
okay. Well, I'll make a motion to recommend to council this ordinance changing the zoning designation of, should I list out the permanent parcel numbers
Yes,
orally? Okay. All of these parcels would be changed to conservation district zoning. Be parcel number 932-02-032, parcel number 931-12-147, parcel number 931-15-015, parcel number 931-15-019, parcel number 931-15-020, parcel number 931-15-021, parcel number 931-15-018, parcel number 931-15-022, parcel number 931-15-023, and parcel number 931-15-024. Again, all going into conservation district zoning.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Baker, was that Rogoff that seconded that?
I did.
I heard a couple name. Okay,
Well, somebody else might have too.
that's okay. Okay, Baker,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Benninger,
Aye.
Pelosi,
Aye.
Rogoff.
Aye.
Rob, the only thing I would ask you to do is
Yeah,
look at the ordinance and then match it against what you believe to be on the map to make sure I caught them all.
okay,
Because I remember I had to go to the county website to verify one of the pieces.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. So then, going back to number 4 on the agenda, residential districts, accessory buildings and structures. Continuing on with the issue raised by Harry of some accessory buildings being built in ways that could potentially be used as for uses that are not currently permitted in an accessory structure. This raised a lot of discussion last time around, and Nancy had some suggestions on how to address it kind of simply by moving a sentence saying that you're not yet allowed to use an accessory structure as a dwelling to the beginning of the code section. There were some other ideas tossed around. My opinion is that it would be an easy way to address this by just making that one simple change of moving that sentence to the top of the section to reiterate that in a single family residential district, there should be one dwelling unit. And that if you build an accessory structure, it's not to be used as a dwelling. That's not changing any policy or anything, just sort of rearranging the section to emphasize that. There are lots of other things we talked about, all of which probably require more thought and research to make sure we don't overstep or create more issues. Does anybody want to say anything on this topic? So what I was going to recommend would be to go ahead with that simple change in language to emphasize that we don't want these buildings being used as residences. And then we can explore additional issues, such as if we wanted to adjust the height regulation or other ways of controlling their use down the road, we could. And Julie is going to look into how to regulate air conditioning and generator units that Harry suggested that would be good to look at. Harry, are you here or no?
No, I'm here.
Oh, I forget. Did you say you've had people are putting air conditioners and generators, or you were just saying that that's something that's lacking from the code?
No, people are conditioning it with air conditioning, and we've had a couple have had whole house generators installed.
Okay. So, and right now the code's silent on that.
And right now, we're not certain that we should not remain silent.
Right. So, in that vein, Julie was going to look into it, just whether, I would think though that those units should follow the same sort of guidelines that we have for main buildings. If you say that an air conditioner or generator on a main building has to be put in a certain place or can only run at certain hours, it seems like you should probably have that apply to additional structures on the property as well. But Julie, you're going to look into that, right?
Yes, I'll have something for you next meeting.
Okay.
Carrie,
Nancy,
do
go
we
ahead.
have any data on how many outbuildings currently have additional dwellings or are occupied?
Are you talking about ones that are grandfathered in the code currently?
Oh, like how many are grandfathered, within, I mean, they're primarily coming up in it's coming up in the village. So where are they? How are they grandfathered? Where are the new requests for conditioning the buildings or refinishing, outfitting the interiors? I'd like to know what percentage of homes we have with this type of dwelling and how it's changed. I just don't have any data. I don't have any information to see if there's actually a trend going one way or another.
Okay. I know I know there's one for sure, maybe two on Elm Court, on the old section of Elm Court, that where people are living in detached garages and it's grandfathered. Those are grandfathered.
Oh,
Isn't there one on Miles Road also, Harry? I think there is.
There's quite a few that are grandfathered.
I would love to have a survey of how many are grandfathered, how many have recently popped up, how many are suspected.
Yeah, and to answer the second part of your question about like the ones that are requested for air conditioning, those are all coming off of new construction, basically. I can think of one up on Bell Street last year where they took a barn and converted it into conditioned space.
Oh, I know which one that
Or
is.
gym. So
But
those-
it's not a dwelling.
excuse me?
They're not using that as a dwelling.
No, they are not.
But
Like-
I feel like the one on East Washington, at Cleveland that has air conditioning.
Correct.
I couldn't hear you.
There is one on East Washington Street, up from Cleveland Street that is conditioned space. Well, that's above a detached garage. And then the one around Cleveland Street, I don't know for sure if that's being used as a dwelling. I've not been in it, but I know it's conditioned space.
I'm not saying that people shouldn't be allowed to condition the space. I'm just saying that there should be some guidelines on the same sort of guidelines that we have for air conditioners and generators for main building. There's got to be something. I don't know if you apply those same guidelines to an accessory structure, or they can just put whatever. But if you're allowed to have your accessory structure closer to your property line, and depending where they put the generator, it would be closer to a neighbor. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed.
And that's what I struggle with, because the setbacks are different for an accessory structure versus a main building.
Right.
Some could be very close to the property. Yeah, like you said, very close to the property line.
So I just would like to know, like, how many of these accessory buildings we have in the village that are conditioned, how many are grandfathered in?
So,
how many?
yeah, but in order to be grandfathered, they would have had to been in use like before this code went into existence in about 1960.
Correct.
It would have had to been used as a residence or two-family property before then.
In 1960, we had a lot more duplexes too.
Right.
I mean, the pendulum has swung from some multifamilies to all moving towards single families with restrictions. And now it may be moving another direction. I just would love to, I think we should.
I don't know how we accomplish that though, Harry. How would we go about getting that data?
Yeah,
like
right.
door to door?
Can we deal with the code section we were talking about instead of going so far off? I mean, those are worthy topics to talk about, but right now we have, what is it, 11/25/04. Do we want to vote on that and send it to council and then have this conversation, which really isn't.
I disagree. I think that before we like keep saying, oh, let's talk about this one line in a code section and pass that off, it starts a ball rolling. This was brought to our attention because it was observation that people were requesting things and executing things on their home properties. That doesn't mean it's something we should need to, all of a sudden we need to down or change a piece in the code. It means we need to understand what is going on with our community and what would be best for it before we just start willy-nilly grabbing a piece of code and putting it front and center and bolding it and modifying it and adding highlights.
I don't think this is willy-nilly. I don't think that there's.
It's not a comprehensive decision.
I don't think that there's a desire in the community to change our single family zoning.
And that's what you think, but I disagree.
That is what I think.
I know, and I disagree.
I don't hear people coming to council or clamoring to change our single family zoning.
No, but you do hear people saying, hey, can I put air conditioning in my building? Hey, can I do this? Can I do that?
That doesn't mean that they're living in those houses, in those
neighbors. It doesn't mean that they're trying to get the most use out of the properties that they owned. Yes, it does. And this world is changing significantly, and it changed rapidly in the last year. So I don't think addressing code changes without fully understanding what's best for our community is the right prudent choice. I just don't. Just because you think that nobody wants it changed or nobody wants to change what they're doing, I disagree.
That's fine. That's fine.
And I think putting blinders on.
Okay, but so we make a motion and we vote on it, and it goes to council, and council decides if they want to change it. But to incessantly talk about it constantly You have your opinion, which you're absolutely entitled to. I have my opinion. We have a code section to look at. We should vote on it.
And I've
up or
asked
down.
us to get more information, and now Wendy is asking to get more information, and you're still ramrodding a code change.
I don't feel like we're ramrodding anything.
Okay,
Anthony,
I'm done.
I probably disagree. Nicole and I are probably on opposite sides of where this should land. However, I am uncomfortable making a decision without knowing what the scope of a problem is, or if it is a problem.
Wendy, I agree with you, but unfortunately, how we get that data
Is a little work.
is I'm not sure. What's that?
It's a survey, and it's a survey of the properties of somehow. There's got to be data that we've already collected at some point in time that we could build upon.
Yeah, it was suggested 2 or 3 meetings ago by Dale.
No, we need
Put
not
a
that
poll
kind.
there, and
I'm physically not understanding how physically this would take place. Harry would go door to door and ask people what they're using their accessory
I mean,
structure
if you-
for or
if you have
inspect it.
20 houses on the street and 18 of them have a 9-foot or 15-foot high garage that can fit 1 car or 2 cars, you can eliminate that property. Right? That's probably not going to have a residential dwelling in it. And then
Wendy,
you can go from there.
Wendy, just because these garages are big doesn't mean
Right.
that they have people living in them.
That's
I
true.
mean, it's not permitted to live in a resident in an accessory building. So I'm not sure what we'd be surveying except to find an illegal.
so if it's not permitted, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of this, anyways? Then, if we were all in agreement with you, Nancy, and what is the benefit of this? If they're not going to admit that they're living in it because it's against code. What's the benefit of changing this one line besides the fact that it marks the code as something upgraded with this date of 2021 as opposed to 1960, and it's making it seem as if we have thoughtfully made a decision rather than just ramming something in as a fear of losing control. It's not. I don't think it's appropriate for the community, especially with all the change in the
Fine,
last
then-
12 months.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Then
Well, my
then vote down
suggestion,
for it. So everybody will go to council.
what we've talked about is we actually get information. Like Wendy said, she probably would vote opposite of me on this, but we want information before we make a change. I don't know
Okay.
how much clearer we can be.
Fine.
So I think Julie was going to look at some language for some information on the air conditioning, and maybe we could get an idea of how many grandfather buildings are out there and how many new requests in the past 2 years have been made to make changes to the garages. I just want more information.
Yeah, but again, a request to rehab your garage or even a request to put air conditioning
Does not mean.
does not mean it's, being set up as a separate dwelling.
I had a
No.
conversation with someone on the architectural review board this week that was not aware that offices are not allowed in the outbuildings.
Personal space is allowed,
Because they should be allowed.
but you can't run a business in an accessory building.
Okay.
So Harry,
Let me ask.
We should
Harry
clean
a
that
up.
question, because
Judy.
Maybe it'll make it a little simpler because we're talking about 3 or 4 different things. I'm not sure how you would find out how many are grandfathered in the last 60 years. But it sounds like, and from all of your pretty good knowledge of the community, it sounds like a small number, but let's set that aside. I would think maybe Harry and Rob could look at the second part of Wendy's question. How many requests have we had in the last X number of years, 2, 3 years? And if that number is, 5, which it sounds like it might be, or some small number, and knowing that many of those may not be at issue. But if it's a really small number, I mean, I think what I'm hearing Nicole suggest is that there's, this groundswell of interest. And I don't remember hearing that, at least on this commission, in all of our conversations in these past years. So if it is possible for the staff to figure that half of the question out, maybe that'll answer enough for Wendy to give her the information she wants. I don't know how you figure out the grandfathered part.
Harry and I can talk about the applications and the situations we've seen in the last couple of years.
And some of those you probably know the answer to. As you look back at them, you may know that, what they wound up doing with it or what they didn't wind up doing with it. So we may be able to eliminate a lot of this further discussion if we find it's a very small number. Then Nicole's question about what the future is going to be, and the piece that Patty sent us about planning and whether council would like to, update the plan or do a survey of the community for this and other more up-to-date changes, is a really different question that we could deal with separately. And I don't think that's just our question. I think that's a village question.
But it was just brought to our attention because Harry was noticing more and more interest in this kind of effort.
Right,
Whether we
but
have it
again, if we
documented.
have, how many parcels or dwellings are there in the village?
I don't know the total number.
Rob or Harry?
I don't know the total number.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's front and center for Harry because he's dealing with this handful, but it's a small number of things, but obviously he brought it to our attention because he's seeing a trend. As we said, a lot, people aren't taking vacations or doing some of the things they used to do, and so and they're spending more time at home over the past year. Whether that's going to continue or not, hopefully not, but so there's been a nationwide trend of people putting more money into their homes. Whether that's a trend for the future or not, who knows?
And Harry and I haven't been inundated with requests. We've
Right.
just several. We
Right.
started seeing a little, motion in that area, and we felt that it was worthy of talking about it.
Right. I mean, that's why my suggestion was to not change the code other than moving this sentence to the beginning, which seems like it's not changing anything. It's just moving it to the front, and then try to wrangle with this a little bit, continue trying to understand the issue and come up with the appropriate solutions. If it is a problem, maybe it's not a problem. And even if you survey everything that's out there right now, when do you say like, okay, this street with all smaller 1-car low garages, that's not an issue. But how many of those people would like, or a new owner would come in and would like to expand their garage or something? Who knows? I just feel like it's a really tricky issue. If we knew all the data, that would be great, but I'm just not sure how we gather that data. So.
Rob and I will report back to you next month with some numbers on existing and what new construction is, and enough said.
Great. That's awesome.
Sounds good.
Can I add one thing? I don't want to keep this going, but my concern on the language was it was not clear in my mind what it meant to say that there could be no residential use, because parking a car in the garage could be residential use. I wanted to add language from 110707A, which said there would be no cooking, no sleeping rooms, that kind of occupancy. So if you're going to make a change, I think you should add that clarifier. If you all decide you don't need to make a change, it's probably not something that anybody's going to argue with us before they've violated the code. It'll only be somebody who's already violated the code. Now they've hired a lawyer and they're trying to figure some way out of it.
Don't we define a dwelling though?
Yeah, Dale,
Well, it's,
That it
it's
can't be used
strange.
as a dwelling? Would that be
We
tighter?
say, no, here's why, and I'll explain in a minute. 112504A7 says no portion of an accessory building may be occupied for residential use.
Right.
So then I tried to figure out, well, what's residential use? And in the definition of a dwelling, where'd that go? 110707. We say a dwelling is a building designed or occupied exclusively for non-transient residential use. So we're back to the residential use, including one family, two family, and multifamily buildings. But if you look above that in 110707A, we define a dwelling unit as a space within a dwelling comprising living, dining, cooking, sleeping room or rooms, storage closets, as well as space and equipment for bathing and toilet facilities, all used by one family. So I would take some of that language from dwelling unit and put that in there to say that an accessory building can't be used as a dwelling and can't have, cooking or sleeping or bathing facilities, that kind of language.
I mean, that would, some of these garages look like they're maybe being outfitted as like a party kind of room, or with what looks like will be kitchen facilities, I bet. And I'm sure there are bathroom facilities in a lot of accessory structures.
Right.
Um,
You might say, well, we're not going to ban cooking if you want to cook up there, but we wouldn't want you to have a sleeping room. Well, what's a sleeping room?
Yeah.
And then, well, is there a combination of things we wouldn't want, such as long as you don't have cooking, sleeping, and bathrooms, you're okay. You could have.
2 out
But
of the
what if
3.
you have? Well, but what if you have sleeping and bathrooms? Now you've made it a place where you could have. It could be an in-law suite because they could come into the house, use the cooking facilities there, or whatever.
I don't know. It's complicated. But personally,
It's really not. It's not complicated. It's just that
well,
the way we used it in 112504 was not bad until you go read our definitions of dwelling units and a dwelling, and then you're not sure, well, at what level does this turn into a dwelling unit?
Well, wasn't that Patty's question then? If we use that language, would that,
What
if we
language?
say it's not a dwelling unit, and if in 1107 we have the language defining a dwelling unit, and we say it's not allowed to be a dwelling unit, understanding that we're still having the discussion of Nicole's issue on all that. But if we were to do that, I'm trying to think of, what the best way to do that was, the simplest.
I think that's the simplest and the clearest. It may not be what you want, but it certainly accomplishes my concern about what does it mean to say you can't use it for residential.
and it also says no portion of an accessory building may be occupied for residential use. That means you have to like be in there. You know what I mean? It's not like a residential use could be, I don't know, watching TV or something, but to actually have it be occupied for residential use means somebody's living there. So I don't know what the right language to legally define it is, but I think we all know what living in a building means. And
you might think it's clear, but there's a dictum in the law that says that when you're restricting people's use of their property, you construe these codes most favorably to the property owner. So a court could say we weren't clear enough, or we weren't, narrow enough in what we were saying.
so you're saying that it's hard to, or it wouldn't stand up or hold up to say you can't use this as a dwelling unit. But if we said you're not allowed to have cooking facilities, bathing facilities, and sleeping, then that's more clear. And so that's
No.
the route we should go.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I was saying to Judy is I think that we could use the phrase that no accessory building could be used as a dwelling unit. And I think that would be okay. Is there another way to do it? Yeah, but you could just refer back to the definition of a dwelling unit.
Right.
You always can have arguments over anything. And somebody could say, well, why can't I then just have a kitchen in there? I like to cook. And so I'm going to do catering for the family, not catering, but I'm going to cook all our meals in the garage. And you probably say, fine, we don't care about that. You just don't want it to become another dwelling unit.
Right. I mean, personally, I don't care about restricting how people use these buildings beyond the fact that to me, a single family residential district is defined and should be one residential dwelling per parcel. Otherwise, the meaning of single family zoning is completely gone. And that's what we have in our code right now. We say number 7, 1125.047 says no portion of an accessory building may be occupied for residential use. End of story. So that provides Harry and Rob something to go by if there is an issue that a neighbor raises. It's not too onerous saying you can't put in air conditioning, you can't put in a sink, you can't do this or that, you can't have second story. It's just saying you can't have somebody living there. I don't think that's unreasonable. It's already in our code. And I think Nancy's suggestion of moving that to the top of the section is a good one. But if it's going to cause issues, we can leave it where it is as long as, Harry and Rob know it's there. And
I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps us at all by moving it.
Okay.
I think you have to add that. You have to make that change to say can't be used for a dwelling unit.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I think that's what this language is intended anyways. I think number 7 right now is intended to say that by saying it can't be occupied for residential use. I think until you pointed out the inconsistency in the language, I think what it means is it can't be used as a dwelling.
It's like saying we intended to change the map to put this into a certain district and it somehow got messed up. Courts don't go by intention, they go by what's written.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, I just think it's an easy fix. I don't think it changes the intent. I think it just makes it clearer.
Dale, are you
Yes.
saying to take some of the language from the dwelling unit definition and put it into this sentence?
No, just leave the
No,
definition alone.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like Patty said, don't change the definition. I'm saying just change. It can't be occupied for residential use. Change it to say no accessory building may be used as a dwelling unit.
Okay.
And then you refer back to the definition.
Okay.
You don't have to because it's already defined.
Right. But the person reading the code would refer back to the definition we already have.
Right.
So
If that's what you want, I can draft it for you to reconsider at your next meeting, or you can pass it now, or you can wait to get more information, as a couple of folks have asked.
And leave it where it is as number 7, or move it to the top.
Yeah, you could. I don't care either way. To me, that's not an important
can't we just
consideration.
take that sentence and say maybe occupied as a dwelling unit?
That's what I just said.
Yeah, so why don't we just change that? And
Well, that's where we all were last month, and we had lengthy discussion. We've had it again, I think, in deference to Nicole's strong opinion about the bigger question, and now Wendy's question about more information. we've sort of gotten off of that. So I would suggest if we would like to do what we said about 10 minutes ago and, let Harry and Rob look at that and come back to answer Wendy's question a little better with more information. And just commit that we will have a motion and vote on it next time and see where it lands. And that doesn't mean that we can't then go forward with other questions about the bigger issues that are going on in the world and the community. And I don't think this is the only one. So I agree with Nicole that things are changing, but I think this is just one of many things that we might address, and that's a different issue, but I would like to get this issue settled. And I don't think that making a clarification change of language of a few words means that now we're saying it's 2021 and it's a whole different ballgame. I think we're clarifying language, and that's what we've been doing for many years with many inconsistencies in the code. And I think until we know differently that we want to make a change to the code, a major change, I think the more we can clarify the language that's in there for the code that exists today, the better off we'll be.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Can hear you now.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, technical difficulty. Judy, I'm sorry, I lost you right when you were speaking.
It was long. You don't want me to do it again.
Okay, was there a resolution on what to do with this?
My suggestion was that since Wendy has brought up a request for information that Rob and Harry seem to think that they can get us by next time, to give us a sense of how many are grandfathered and the magnitude of the issue, let's bring that to the next meeting, and then let's make a decision on this particular question. And then we can talk about the larger questions of, what's the future going to bring and what should we be doing, and should we be doing a new plan or surveying or all that. But we can resolve this, I think, next meeting, one way or another, based on the information we receive.
Okay.
Except that council does not want to have a lot of public hearings on zoning. So.
And we're not going to do that.
Well, we would be doing it if we wait till next month, and it wouldn't be with the other two things that we passed on to council.
Can we not hold those two one more month?
Why do we have to have them together?
Because they have to do public hearings and they
Passing
have,
two in one meeting. We did two. I mean, that should not weigh in
That's-
our decision making.
Yeah, they can either hold those, or they can,
Yeah.
or they can hold those, or they can, when we do something next month with this, we can hold that. But the fact
Yeah.
remains, this is the current code that we have. Like what we have right now says that no portion of an accessory may be occupied for residential use. If we think we're going to do anything more with it, then just change it to dwelling unit, replacing the words residential use to clarify that. Then I would agree we should hold off and see what Rob and Harry can provide for us. I'm just not sure how it's going to change, whether we have a lot of them or a few of them. I'm not sure it affects my my thought of what we should do about it.
Yeah,
To
I
me,
agree, Patty. I think that's it. You're talking about a much bigger question, and this minor change is not the same as having the conversation about the bigger question.
Well, and if you have 10 families in Chagrin Falls that want to use an accessory structure as a dwelling unit, or you have, 100, does that make it, does the fact that there's 100 that want to do it make you want to allow it? Or does that want to make you say we need tighter restrictions so you can't do that? To me, what we have in the code right now is working pretty well. It's it's a pretty desirable place to live. Housing market is crazy. I don't know. It doesn't seem like people are not moving here because they want to have a second residence on their lot and they're not allowed to. But I don't know, Nancy, if you want to make a motion about this one sentence, we can, or anybody else. And it can either, it can get voted one way or another. But if we're going to make other changes to this section, it seems kind of like we should wait.
And
Maybe
that's why I suggested we wait till next time. And I thought when we came to this meeting, we had discussed it thoroughly last time. We have our opinions and we would vote. But Wendy brought up a different issue, and we now have at least 2 of our 5 members who have questions or don't feel they have information. So I think we'd be wise to wait till next meeting to see that information. If it's 10 people or if it's 100, it does make a difference to me. It doesn't predict the outcome of what I think we should do. It just would tell me if there were 100 or 50, that there was more interest in it. I don't believe that's going to be what happens, but I don't know. So we'll see.
What exactly is the question that you want Harry and Rob to look at? Those are kind of big numbers that you're coming up with.
I think they understand. We're trying to get a rough count of those that have built out their secondary structures for dwellings, those that have been grandfathered, and those that have showed interest or asked questions. Can I do this? I want to move my mother-in-law. And how many people have asked questions? Just to show what is the interest, and has it moved the needle? Has it grown in the last couple of years? That's all we're trying to figure out. And yes, each one of us will have our own opinions.
Those sort of requests are pretty distinct. So I think with Harry's knowledge of what he's dealt with, I have a couple that have come to mind. We'll see what we can put together and present.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and I don't think we'll necessarily know about what the actual use is unless there's been somebody has told Harry that's right out, or a neighbor has said something, or so we'll see. All right, I think that's a very reasonable suggestion. So let's do that. We'll wait for next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, the last thing on our agenda tonight is lighting, which came back to us after there was a revision March 11th, 2020 that we never dealt with, and hopefully everybody had time to look through that.
Can I ask a couple of questions on this?
Sure.
I did review it, and it looks, what came to mind was, well, one discrepancy, but was that with that lumens of 7,500 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the code was written initially for development. So you're planning a development like court, and they're saying you can only have, I think we determined that it's like 100 watt bulbs, and that would be, you have a 25 in the development, and so they have 2 lamps or something, like, one at the end of like one at the end of their driveway and one at the front door, because it just seems as if it's written for development, not necessarily. What we're also seeing now is individual homes doing more illumination of the features of their home and the landscape and things like that. This is a new phenomenon. So I was just curious if part of the reason why that number seems so large was because now we're dealing with individuals lighting their homes versus a development of single family homes.
I don't know. I questioned that. I asked Julie about that as well. That number.
Well, when
is
you read it, it sounds like it's for single family, retirement living in any zoning. So it's almost like it's maybe someone's working with a certain area.
Right. And this section, oh gosh, what section is it? C3 on page 5. That says outdoor lighting fixtures installed in conservation parks and all 1 and 2 family residential districts.
Right.
Shall comply with the following. And that has the total light output of all exterior lighting shall not exceed 75,000 lumens, which Julie has noted is equivalent to 50 100-watt bulbs. So that makes
saying that area sounds like it's written for development. Like,
right, but it's under a section that's saying it's for 1 and 2 family residential districts plus parks and conservation. So
but written prior to the illumination of homes the way that we see them now.
Yeah. Julie, can you speak to that, or can you look further into what a more appropriate number could be for
an individual home,
single family and two family? And also, should it be a sliding scale with respect to how much if you're a 2-acre lot versus a 1/10 of an acre lot, seems like the total number of lumens on the property could be different or should be different.
Yes, I can do that. I'm just not certain Wendy, when you're saying it's written for development and that it may be different today, I'm not quite sure if I understand what you're saying. Are you saying the 75,000 lumens would be for an entire subdivision?
Well, if it's 75,000 lumens adds up to, what was it?
50 100-watt bulbs.
100-watt bulbs. If you think of a development in the 60s, they typically had a 60-watt at the front door, and maybe they had a lamp at the end of the driveway, and they had one down by the garage. I mean, it just wasn't lit the same way. Homes were not lit the same way as they are now.
Well, I mean, I think the equivalent is just to give you a point of reference.
That's a lot of light for a single family home.
Right, but when I'm not saying people would put 50 100-watt bulbs on their property, but if you have a floodlight or some other kind of light, the total sum of the output would be that equivalent, but it wouldn't be 50 individual 100-watt light bulbs.
Still a
Sure,
ton
but
of light.
I think we're saying it's too much. That's too much.
Well, and that's what I'll look at too. And I'll look and see if some communities have, seemed like it was pretty, it's been a year since we've really dug into this. So I will look into that particular thing, see if I can find communities with smaller lots that have, that address this.
Because, it's great that you provided that point of reference, because otherwise 75,000 lumens doesn't mean anything to me. So that's great that you provided that point of reference. But seeing that point of reference, I think, even if you have a couple floodlights or whatever, that's an awful lot of light.
Well, yes. And I really don't know if it is or isn't, because I don't know what someone's, I can look out on my back and I probably have 8 light fixtures that I can turn off 1 or 2 at a time that'll put, lighting on my deck. And I bet you each of those bulbs are more than 100-watt bulbs, because they're LED bulbs now, but I bet they put out a lot of light. So people have, driveway lighting, people have all kinds of exterior lighting fixtures. It might be, it might be interesting to see if we can come up with, or, maybe if we've had some new construction, if a builder or somebody on a new house in the village is able to quantify what they've done here, I can, or I can see if I can find recent new construction illustrations of how modern lighting is installed in a home setting, and see if there's numbers I can find to attach to that.
That would be great.
I think it's also difficult to really kind of comprehend, because if you have a larger house that has a pool in the backyard with additional lighting in the back, what would be an appropriate amount of light to light up that sort of facility in the back of your property? Do you have a deck? I know we have some homes that have some pretty large outdoor pools, decks, outdoor kitchens, seating areas. And obviously the lighting for that entire house is going to be a lot more than, say, a smaller home in our historic district. So I think it would be hard to come up with an amount that would be applicable to both types of houses in the same sort of fairness, because if you set the standard to accommodate what somebody might want for their very large property, that same amount of light may not be appropriate on the smaller properties. I don't know how you differentiate, or Julie, if you're able to.
Yeah,
see if
I'll look at
anybody
that
has
and
done
see.
that in the code. But I know several properties where they have a lot of, outdoor entertainment sort of features to the backyards, which are, well concealed. But I'm sure they have quite a bit of light to light those areas up compared to someone that just has a small deck.
Well, I think this goes back to how many houses we have that are R150 and R160 and on acre lot. I mean, there's a lot of homes that are on small parcels,
Sure.
and there's not as many homes that are on large parcels that would have all those amenities.
Right.
I had flagged that same section. What I was curious about and not knowing how much is enough or too much light, but the fact that it was for the conservation parks and all 1 or 2 family houses sort of seemed like an oxymoron to me, because what you would have in a park, and again, it's, a park can be giant size and 7,500 might not be enough for a large park as compared to a house. So I wasn't figuring out how, if it's too much or not enough light. I was thinking, how can those two things be the same?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, and let's recall the two, we have other standards, and I guess the overriding standard in the code is that just like water, you're supposed to keep things on your property. And, I think we have other language in this that says you're not to let the light disperse beyond your property line.
Yeah, so this does say that, let's see, 1150.03B3 says at the property line, you're supposed to have 11 lux maximum. So throughout like the use of lux and lumens, so at least we got rid of foot candles. So we don't have that in there too. But if we could somehow have the lux numbers and the lumens numbers somehow.
Okay. We'll look at the chart on the top of page 4.
Yeah.
That can give you an idea. It's foot candles and lux.
Right, so, but where's lumens? Like, how does lumens relate to the lux?
I think that's a different thing. But I'm just trying to tell you that piece of information here.
Yeah. No, that was great.
2 things. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just
I'll see what I can find.
If you're allowed to have no more than 11 lux at the edge of your property, how does that jive with the 75,000 lumens of light output on your property? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I don't know if you can make that correlation.
I just, I don't know. I guess that's how you get to the size of the lot making a difference. That if you have a larger lot and your house is kind of in the middle and all your lights are around your house, then it's not affecting the neighbors maybe, but I'm not sure. I guess we're gonna just, as you already have done, really rely on other codes, seeing like, are both of these things something that people have in their code, and is there a way to understand that 75,000 number better?
So Patty, I have some information here for you. 1 lux is equal to about 1 lumen per square meter.
1 lumen per square meter.
Yeah, so lux is defined as the amount of light that is cast on a surface is called illuminance, which is measured in lux. This can be thought of as light intensity within a specific area. Lumens is the total output of visible light from a light source, which is measured in lumens. So lumens measures the output of the light at the light.
Right. Yeah.
And lux is how much in a certain area.
Right. Yeah, it's just hard as a layperson, like what does, I guess it says here that 11 lux at the property line is kind of looks like, it looks like twilight, or it looks like it's what you would need with twilight.
Yes, I mean, I think that's what it's saying, is it would, it would be no more light cast on the property line than it would be at twilight.
Right.
Chart, the second little illustration is kind of the same thing.
So I guess if you have both of these standards, which one, if a neighbor's having a problem with a light that's bothering them, a neighbor's light that's bothering them, how do you, if that person says, well, I'm allowed to have 75,000 lumens output on my property, I'm under that, yet it's sort of causing light trespass onto the neighbor's property. Just seems hard to figure out a little bit.
It does seem hard to enforce, or
And
how to
Harry-
figure out how to enforce it.
Harry, have you had issues with complaints about neighbors' lights? Or Rob?
Yeah, there's been a few.
We dealt with the security light issue most recently. And that was just an issue of aiming,
Mhm.
from what I understand. But we didn't get into measuring any kind of light output, but it was very clear from what we saw that when it kicked on, that it was extending over the property line. So we made the people aware and they made the adjustment, and I haven't heard.
Yeah.
since.
Yeah.
I also think that in like we are planning and zoning entity, that it would be important for us to look forward as trends in lighting are changing to ensure that there's a reduced light pollution. Maybe some people aren't concerned about that, but
Well, yeah, even if it's not directly shining into your neighbor's window or spilling onto their property, it's still glowing, glowing upwards and causing light pollution for sure. And that's in the purpose section at the beginning, I think. Actually, you know what? I was going to ask you to add that, Julie. We have control glare, prevent light trespass, minimize obtrusive light, conserve energy. I was wondering if we should also use the words light pollution, minimize light pollution in there, because it's comes up later in some of the other sections.
Okay.
I did also see some a discrepancy, I think on page 2, item 115003, section 2A2. It says only from dusk to midnight, but other language says 11 p.m. So
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
that's an
Yeah.
inconsistency there.
Yeah, I saw that as well. That's good. I think if we have specific comments, could we send them to you, Julie? Would that to go into the next version, or?
Oh, sure. Probably better if you send them to Rob,
Okay,
and then that way he'll get them to me, so that make
Yep.
sure he has that, and it
Okay.
goes to a public record
Yeah.
an email address.
Okay, so anybody on the commission that's gone through this and has, little nitpicky things you don't want to spend time on now, they could be incorporated into the next version by sending them to Rob. Let's see. Excuse me. On page 4, Julie, I don't know what it would be. Let's see. 115003. Maybe it's kind of hard to follow all the numbering. I'm not sure. It's
So the only items on 4 is a 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, we're at the bottom of page 4, number 6. It says it's talking about a maximum recommended amount. Let's see. All lighting will be designed to achieve no more than a maximum average equal to 200% of the recommended average. So I'm just wondering, if there's a recommended average, why would we say that you're allowed to have 200% of the recommended amount? And then it says that only in excess of 300% would be considered non-conformance with this chapter.
I'll have to look at that. I'm sure it looks like it was probably in some previous versions, so it may be from a model language. I'll have to look and see.
Yeah.
Let me
You know
see.
what I'm saying? Like if they're
I actually
recommending.
have the prior version.
Okay.
This one's old. This probably has nothing like that in there.
Just something to look at, like if there's a recommendation, why are we saying you can go twice over that, and that even twice over that's fine? It's only 3 times over that that's a problem.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that and see, because there must be a reason.
Mm-hmm. And then on page 6, there's at the top, there's kind of in the middle, right above the exemptions, it's talking about planning and zoning being able to authorize modifications to a lighting plan. And then also there's a section added at the end on page 7, 115007, talking about planning and zoning being able to give different or modify the requirements for special uses.
Yes.
I'm okay with the special uses thing, because it seems like, okay, those are unique situations, but I don't love the idea of planning and zoning being the people that give modifications for lighting plans. I don't know.
Well, one of the reasons I moved that is because currently review of a lighting plan comes to you. Rob, isn't that correct? That planning and zoning is supposed to review the lighting plan?
Yes, for new developments.
Right.
Yes.
So to me, it just seemed like it was a more streamlined thing to do, that if planning and zoning is reviewing a lighting plan, that the ability to make a modification should lie with planning and zoning in the course of you already doing what you're charged to do.
Okay, but so that would only be for, well, that would be for anything that requires a lighting plan,
Right.
which is not a single, okay,
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I see it here. Okay, so it's institutional, attached, single family, multifamily, RMU, retirement living, and any business or industrial districts. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Those are the things, those are the big plans that come to you anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
This way you can look at it all in a package.
Okay. I just didn't want us having to consider whether somebody can, at their own single family home, change out their
Right. I
porch light.
agree.
Nancy, Nicole, Wendy, Judy, anybody have anything they want to talk about with this?
No,
I-
I've expressed
I
my-
don't.
No, nothing else.
Nothing else.
Oh, Nancy, you had mentioned to me and just chatting that about there's a few places in here where it says that fix anything before the date of this chapter shall be exempt
Oh,
from.
yeah, yeah.
So, and it just seemed odd to me as well that, we don't, that's always the case, that if something happens before the code is put in place, it's grandfathered. But it seemed a little odd to call it out in this chapter. There were a couple places where it says, like 115003 general requirements.
Right.
Any lighting installed after the effective date of this chapter shall comply with the following. It just seems sort of like that's a given.
There
But
was somewhere else too. There was other language too like that.
yeah. It's in 115004D on page 6. Yeah, that one's kind of saying that, if you have a grandfathered situation and then it breaks and you're going to repair it or change it, then you have to meet the standards of the new code. Which again, isn't that the way everything works for grandfathering?
Pretty much, this is just gonna be, and I think Harry agrees, it's gonna be very hard to enforce this.
Right.
Very hard. And not unless you're gonna put something in that's much bigger, that, all of a sudden your neighbor notices like, holy cow, you put in a much bigger lighting fixture than what was there before. That, if it triggers a complaint, then we'd have to look at that situation.
Sure. Just like anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wonder why the language is in there in the first place.
Yeah, because we don't have that in every section.
Right.
Julie, do you know?
No, I'll have to go back and refresh my memory on this.
Yeah. It does seem unnecessary.
I agree. And I'm not totally sure by the time we got to this version, how much of this is in our existing chapter, how much of this we've added, how much we've edited. So I'll have to kind of go back and track some of these changes.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. I sort of played phone tag with the lighting person that Wendy had mentioned before from Outdoor Lighting Perspectives, I think is the name of his company. And he contacted me. We just didn't end up actually connecting before the meeting. So I will try to talk to him as well before our next meeting, or see if he can attend our next meeting to give some input on some of the numbers as well.
Right. And I think that would be helpful. I mean, I do not have the technical expertise to advocate for or against stating of the
Right.
numbers. I usually just say, well, this is what's typical in
Yeah.
communities. So
I think the idea of having a builder, like if anybody knows, anybody has a contact with a builder or Harry, would Tim Lannon have information on? I know he reviewed this long ago. Do you guys have?
No, I think what you're going to end up doing here is we're going to have to start requiring a lighting expert for new plans, and that goes for residential. And
Wow.
I don't know how that's going to be received.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say is this code addresses like new, and it talks a little bit about grandfathering, but what about in the case of somebody, let's just use this as an example. Somebody has a parking lot and they want to update their lighting to LED lighting and get for your vapor lights. How are we going to address that? So they're basically going to change out the lamp and go from a mercury vapor to an LED light. They're not going to make any change to the poles, the same, but the lumens could change.
Well, I guess they would have to provide us with a comparison of what the light output would be. I remember going through all this with the intermediate school.
Right.
Right, but this,
So the applicant would have to, show that they're not increasing their output or trespass or whatever, right?
what I'm getting at is that may not necessarily trigger a permit. They could do it on their own and we won't have any say so in it.
Right,
see.
you're saying like routine maintenance. Is
Correct.
where's the line between a renovation and a routine maintenance?
Correct.
Well, yeah, I don't know how to deal with that.
But I mean, that's with everything, right? I mean, we don't,
Right.
there's certain things when people go in to do to their home that we don't require a permit for. And sometimes it can influence the appearance of a house.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking like a parking lot. Let's say the plaza changes their lighting fixtures.
Yeah.
Now it's much brighter and, we didn't have a say so in it. So.
Right, but at least now, with this code section in place, you'll have something to fall back on if there are concerns about it,
Right.
that you have something behind you to go and say, this is too bright, you got to change it.
Yeah, well, that might be after the fact because we
Yeah.
do not know anything about it.
Right,
That's
right.
all.
I mean, one thing is to consider how much of this should just be handled on a nuisance basis. I mean, you have things in probably your public safety codes, other things where people can't create lighting that is a nuisance to people. And if
Right.
it rises to that level, then you contact them and then you are able to enforce that under something that's not necessarily zoning. That's not really a comprehensive way to do it, but if you're thinking about, from an administrative standpoint and for evaluating the magnitude of this issue compared to other issues in the village, you may decide that you just want to keep with the nuisance type language instead of something that's so prescriptive during the building process that has to always continually be evaluated for compliance.
Yeah, I remember in chapter 1144, I think it was under environmental performances. We have a section there about glare and we took that out of the code. So.
Well, but I don't think that chapter applies to 1 and 2 family. So I think that's kind of come full circle. That's one of the reasons we decided we wanted to make this whole new chapter.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't have this chapter before, and
Right,
I thought it
it's
was
a new
noticed
chapter.
as a an inadequacy in our code during the overhaul, and we wanted to add it. Or Dale, did you recommend having this chapter in here? Do you think it's a good idea?
Dale signed off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was part of it was during the overhaul.
And also during when the
Right.
intermediate school was going on and we had so many questions.
Mhm.
I think it was both of those.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, there's always going to be enforceability issues with everything, but I think since we have it in our code now and Julie's put in the work to develop something that I think we should tidy it up and keep it in there unless everybody else wants to take it out. But we can talk to Dale maybe next time more about his thoughts on whether it's important to have it in the zoning code as opposed to like a nuisance kind of issue.
Right. Well, and we try to streamline some of this and then questions come up about what does this mean? What does that mean? And then we go the other direction and we pull out all the technical terms and technical numbers because we want to be able to quantify it. But sometimes that can confuse the issue. Also,
Yeah.
and for me, when we reach, like I said, from a code standpoint and from what you want to see in the community, I don't really know if this is going to bring about what it is we want or not. Maybe it's just as well to come up with something simple that says, be a good neighbor. You might have to, that's too simplified, but that's what we're really trying to, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I
Be
think
good neighbors.
I think we're trying, and I think this also goes to the other topic that we continue to discuss, is that we're trying to look forward and we're seeing changes occur within the village, but they're not substantive yet. They're not or substantial, but they could be.
Yes.
And we're just trying to look forward and try to predict, when we make, if we make a change to the code, what are the unintended consequences to those changes? And that we can't predict. So we have to be mindful of the changes that we make. And we also have to be forward thinking as planning and zoning to try to see from past experience how to see around corners and determine, this may be a trend that, will impact a lot of people. I mean, there's a difference between one person putting up a few obnoxious lights and and a whole street becoming landscape lighted or lit. And that has a impact on all the surrounding properties. So it's just something we need more information on and something to look into with detail.
And I think people are generally more attuned to the problem. Even when Streetscape was first done, I remember everybody was just shocked at how bright the lights were.
You're saying that people are more aware of light pollution than they were before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think if anybody has specific comments or things they want to ask about, email them to Rob to pass on to Julie. And Julie, if you can do what you can to get us a new version before next meeting.
I sure will.
And if there's things that you've gotten a number of comments on that aren't, that it's not obvious what to do, just leave it in there as a note and we'll talk about it further.
Okay.
Is there anybody, does anybody else have anything more? So this will be on for next week or next month as well. Okay. I think we can be adjourned. Be adjourned.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Right.
8:50 p.m.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.